They say you always hurt the ones you love, which explains why I keep cutting myself, shaving, and also explains why this will be the third Little-Minded Hobgoblin in a row in which I rip into, or at least mildly paw at, one of my favorite films of all time. This time it's the Star Trek franchise. Now a faded glimmer of its former glory. And the irony is that at the time this film was released, Trek was widely considered to be past its prime as well. The year was 1982. Michael Jackson still had his third nose, and E.T. became the biggest moneymaker in movie history. In the Trek world, Star Trek the Motion Picture had been released 2.5 years earlier and had done good box office, but nothing near the success of Star Wars, which was what Paramount was hoping for. So they pushed out Gene Roddenberry, brought in Harve Bennett and Nicholas Meyer, and greenlit a sequel with a quarter of the budget of the motion picture. And, to their delight, Wrath of Khan was a hit. It reinvigorated the franchise and led to, it's no exaggeration, every single Trek product since then. If Trek II had been a failure, Trek would likely have faded away, only to be rebooted 40 years later when Hollywood couldn't think of a single original idea to put up on the screen. No, wait, that was 27 years later. Khan, like Raiders and Jaws, is as close to perfection as a movie can come, without actually ascending into the sky and telling us it'll be back sometime, but no man knows the day. The script is complex, literate, intelligent, exciting, clever. The acting is pulpy when it needs to be, and devastatingly artless when it needs to be. The music is, to my mind, the best film score ever not written by John Williams. The direction is capable, the effects hold up coming up on half a century later. Well, why don't I just let her say it?
This was the best Star Trek that I've ever seen before. It had the characters were really back to the old episodes. It had action, it had humor, it had love, it had tragedy. All of those things thrown in that we've been missing all these years, and even more so now.
You know there's a but coming, so here it is.
His crack goes out.
I've never seen that asshole before in my life.
But there are a couple of nits to be picked with the film. The first is such a small nitpick that you might say, come on, James.
Get a life!
And I'd be hard-pressed to disagree with you. But it is an undeniable chink in the armor of what is otherwise one hell of a polished piece. Okay, as usual, 2 scenes. The first is from the Trek episode that introduced Khan, Noonien Singh, Space Seed. As the stallion said to the mare, excuse the length, just want to remind everyone how this all began.
This hearing is now in session. Under the authority vested in me by Starfleet Command, I declare all charges and specifications in this matter have been dropped.
Jim, agreed you have the authority.
Mr. Spock, I believe our heading takes us near the Ceti Alpha star system.
Quite correct, Captain. Planet number 5 there is habitable, although a bit savage, somewhat inhospitable.
But no more than Australia's Botany Bay colony was at the beginning. Those men went on to tame a continent, Mr. Khan. Can you tame a world?
Have you ever read Milton, Captain?
Yes. I understand. Lieutenant Marla McGavers. Given a choice of court-martial or accompanying them there,
difficult. A struggle at first, even to stay alive, to find food.
I'll go with him, sir.
A superior woman. I will take her. And I've gotten something else I wanted. A world to win, an empire to build.
This hearing is closed.
It's a shame for a good Scotsman to admit it, but I'm not up on Milton.
The statement Lucifer made when he fell into the pit. It is better to rule in hell than serve in heaven.
Huh.
Would be interesting, Captain, to return to that world in 100 years and learn what crop had sprung from the seed you planted today.
Yes, Mr. Spock. It would indeed.
The second scene, and again, excuse the length, is when Chekhov and Captain Terrell are discovered by Khan in the remains of the Botany Bay.
Never told you how Admiral Kirk sent 70 of us into exile on this barren sand heap with only the contents of these cargo bays to sustain us.
You lie! In City Alpha 5 there was life. A fair chance.
This is City Alpha 5!
SETI Alpha 6 exploded 6 months after we were left here. The shock shifted the orbit of this planet and everything was laid waste. Admiral Kirk never bothered to check on our progress. It was only the fact of my genetically engineered intellect that allowed us to survive. On Earth, 200 years ago, I was a prince with power over millions.
Captain Kirk was your host. You repaid his hospitality by trying to steal his ship and murder him.
You didn't expect to find me. You thought this was SETI Alpha 6. Why are you here?
You may be saying, I don't see anything wrong there. Well, think about it for a moment. The SETI Alpha system had, as of Space Seed, at least 6 planets. Khan says SETI Alpha 6 exploded. This changed the orbit of SETI Alpha 5, laying it waste. There are several problems here. First, the USS Reliant came to the SETI Alpha system looking for suitable host planets for the Genesis device. The ship is shown having found what they believe to be SETI Alpha 6, and then Chekhov and Terrell beam down to make sure it is, in fact, lifeless. But hold on. The Federation knows the SETI Alpha system. They deposited Khan there 15 years earlier. In Space Seed, Kirk and Spock seem pretty familiar with the place. The Federation must have mapped the system. Certainly they would have once they deposited Khan there. They have to know there are at least 6 planets there. But Reliant never notices the system is missing a planet? If SETI Alpha 6 exploded as Khan says, there should still be obvious evidence of this. Debris scattered all across the system, or at least noticeable enough to a starship that's specifically scanning the system looking for a lifeless planet. That's one issue. The other is that Reliant thinks Ceti Alpha 5 is Ceti Alpha 6, which means Ceti Alpha 6's explosion just happened to blow Ceti Alpha 5 directly into Ceti Alpha 6's old orbit. I suppose there may be some astrophysical phenomenon I'm unaware of that may explain this, and sure, once a planet explodes, a solar system's entire gravitational dynamics are going to change, but it's a wee bit unbelievable that the dynamics could line up that perfectly. For that matter, how does a planet just explode? You're walking along one day and your planet just explodes. You're dropping your kid off at school and your planet just explodes. You're accepting the Oscar for Best Film and your planet just explodes. At least the Kryptonians had Jor-El to warn them, though they ignored him and paid the price. Planets aren't stars. They don't go nova or supernova. They're either hunks of rock or balls of gas. They don't just spontaneously explode. But, in fact, there's a bigger issue that precedes these, and another that precedes even it, but it's a fault with the original Space Seed, not Wrath of Khan. Watch.
Under the authority vested in me by Starfleet Command, I declare all charges and specifications in this matter have been dropped.
Jim, agreed you have the authority.
Mr. Spock, I believe our heading takes us near the Ceti Alpha star system.
Quite correct, Captain. Planet number 5 there is habitable, although a bit savage, somewhat inhospitable.
But no more than Australia's Botany Bay colony was at the beginning. Those men went on to tame a continent, Mr. Khan. Can you tame a world?
Kirk can decide on his own authority to maroon a dangerous fugitive to a backwater planet in the enlightened, forward-thinking, progressive Federation of the 23rd century. Which leads to the larger issue with Wrath of Khan, namely, why didn't Starfleet ever check up on Khan? At the end of Space Seed, Spock says it would be interesting to see what's become of Ceti Alpha 5 in 100 years. But remember, this is Khannn-Noonien Singh, in the Star Trek universe, the Ubermensch of the 1990s eugenics wars. Hell, he says the quiet part out loud.
And I've gotten something else I wanted. A world to win, an empire to build.
You're telling me the Federation wouldn't be keeping an eye on this guy? One of the most serious security risks ever to draw breath? They'd set up a cordon around Ceti Alpha 5 with all the impermeability of the US border. Bad example. And then when Ceti Alpha 6 explodes, Starfleet never thinks to check on the people they know to be, because they put them there, on Ceti Alpha 5. However distant those two planets may be from each other, they're still in the same system. What kind of organization is the Federation that they don't even bother to see if the Ceti Alpha 5ers are okay? For that matter, how come, to return to the previous issue, they don't already know Ceti Alpha 5 has now assumed the exact orbit of the exploded Ceti Alpha 6? How come they don't already know that the planet Reliant is scanning is not Ceti Alpha 6, but Ceti Alpha 5? With all of Starfleet's advanced scanning technology, it strains credulity past the breaking point to say, a planet blew up, and now there's one less planet in the system, but Reliant, which we're shown as scanning planets at what amounts to a cellular level, doesn't detect this and doesn't wonder why? In fact, you could even make the argument that Reliant shouldn't have been looking for a Genesis guinea pig planet in the Ceti Alpha system to begin with, because Starfleet knows that Ceti Alpha 5, the next planet over, has life on it. And Starfleet doesn't know exactly what effects the Genesis device will have, which is why they're looking for a planet with zero life on it. It'd be like messing around with Mars in the hopes that nothing you do there will affect Earth in any way. Which may or may not be a gamble, but why take the chance when you have a universe, as Star Trek does, with easy access to hundreds, thousands, millions of other possible guinea pig planets? The proportion of planets without life to those with life has got to be pretty high. Finding a lifeless planet in the Star Trek universe should be like finding responsible leaders in government. Bad example. The answer to all these questions is, of course, that without those things, you don't have a movie. But fixing these issues is not that complicated. You keep the results, you just change the causes in the timeline. What follows is, mind you, only one possible scenario, but it does do the job. First, SETI Alpha 6 never exploded. What happened was that Khann, with his superior intelligence, rebuilt the Botany Bay in secret to escape SETI Alpha 5. In secret because Starfleet had been checking up on him every year or so. This makes it clear not only that Khann is in fact super intelligent, but also that his ambitions were not limited to the SETI Alpha system. The Botany Bay is, however, missing one vital component that can't be reproduced on SETI Alpha 5. Nevertheless, Khann launches the ship with all his followers aboard, demonstrating his arrogance, stubbornness, and single-mindedness. And predictably, the ship, lacking that vital component, crash lands on SETI Alpha 6. The next time Starfleet returns to SETI Alpha 5, they find no Khann, no Marla MacGyvers, no followers, no remains of Botany Bay, only an empty planet. It's inconceivable to them that Khann could have used such a damaged ship to escape. Plus, where would he have found that missing vital component on SETI Alpha 5? So in the absence of any other explanation, they assume Khann and his people have fallen prey to some storm, plague, or predator, and that Botany Bay is lost somewhere under the sand. They have no way of knowing Khann is now on SETI Alpha 6. Marla MacGyvers, the Enterprise crewwoman who became Khann's wife, maybe died in the crash landing, or maybe died later from the earworms, as Khann says in the film. Khann still blames Kirk for everything, so you lose nothing in his motivation, and everything now fits together, instead of making little to no sense in the universe as Star Trek posits it. Kirk could even say, when he first sees Khann on the monitor,
"Aren't you dead?"
to indicate that Starfleet had checked up on SETI Alpha 5, but Khann and his followers had disappeared without explanation. I did warn you this was, as plot holes go, not exactly crippling, but it is a hole, and as I hope I've demonstrated, a fairly easily filled in hole. How these things escape the 10 million people who work on these movies, I will never understand. But, as I always say, I'm in China and they're in Hollywood. They must know something I don't. I just wish I knew what it was. Now we come to the second plot hole, which is actually pretty egregious given the supposed superintelligence of Khann, Nooney, and Singh. Let's watch again.
The escape pods are all in place. Where's the transporter room? Did you make it down here?
It was not my impression. He spent most of his time trying to wring the information out of the people.
Anything?
The unit's been left on, which means nobody remained to turn it off.
Those people back there bought escape time for Genesis with their lives.
So Khann is faced with a space station with a skeleton crew and no Genesis information. The escape pods haven't been used, and he never thinks to check the transporter. He's not unaware of transporter technology. He uses it quite soon after this to retrieve the Genesis device from Regula. And yet, Tyrell tells us Khann tortured the crew of Regula 1 to find out where the Genesis information had been taken. With the escape pod still present, there are only two possibilities for the missing scientists to have left Regula 1 in the Star Trek universe: by starship or by transporter. There's no way Khann wouldn't have known this. In no way he wouldn't have checked the transporter room first thing. You might claim that, given how quickly Tyrell and Chekhov turn on Kirk and company once they know the location of the Genesis device, that this was Khan's plan all along, to have Kirk show up, find Tyrell and Chekhov, beam down to Regula, and then Khann would take Genesis and have Tyrell kill Kirk. But this is so convoluted as to count as what every Star Wars fan has been doing for 25 years, with both the prequel and sequel movies, making excuses for obvious lapses. If Khann had known where Genesis was, he would have just gone after it himself, killed Carol and David, beamed up Genesis, and then waited for Kirk to beam down, and had the pleasure of achieving his long-awaited revenge himself. How to fix this? How about this? After Carol and David transport down to Regula with Genesis, The scientists left behind on Regula 1 destroy the transporter, erasing all record of where the Doctor's Marcuses have gone. Khann finds the transporter destroyed and knows they've gone to Regula, but without the precise coordinates, can't possibly beam where they did, thanks to some convenient interference from the planetoid or the nearby Mutara Nebula that prevents scanning for life forms. Of course, this also prevents Kirk from knowing where Carol and Genesis went, but you could insert another bit of Federation-specific technobabble to allow Enterprise to decode the transporter coordinates from the smashed transporter. Technobabble that Khann, unfamiliar as he is with such things as the SHIELD code, didn't know about. This kind of patchwork, though, is not exactly optimal, and only necessary because the original scenario wasn't, in my arrogant opinion, thought through as carefully as it should have been. You could have had a very different scenario develop in which Khann has taken Carol and Genesis and David hostage. Once he discovers, as drama necessitates he must, that Carol is Kirk's ex and David his son, oh, the possibilities that unfold. Tension, conflict, stakes. Talk about edge-of-your-seat storytelling. One last thing about Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. This scene, a coda at the end of the film between Kirk and his son.
Can I talk to you for a minute?
I poured myself a drink. Would you like it?
Lieutenant Savick was right. You never have faced death.
No, not like this. I haven't faced death. I've cheated death. I tricked my way out of death. And patted myself on the back for my ingenuity. I know nothing.
It's a lovely scene, beautifully played by both Bill Shatner and Merritt Buttrick. And within the context of the film, it's perfectly all right. But when you place the film within the context of Star Trek history, as the second cinematic sequel to a TV series that ran 79 episodes, this exchange,
you never have faced death.
No, not like this,
is downright insulting. Kirk has never faced death like this. Kirk has cheated death and patted himself on the back for his ingenuity. How about this little incident?
No, Jim.
And what about this one, where he lost his brother and sister-in-law?
Sam. It is my brother.
And this one, in which he lost both his love and the unborn child she was carrying.
Love you all.
And I love you, Miramani. Always.
And let's not forget his best friend. Never faced death like this? Give me a break. You might as well say Captain Sulu enjoyed female companionship. Kirk faced death many a time, in many an episode, both the possibility of his own and the reality of others. Spock's death perhaps hit him harder than any other, but this exchange makes it seem as if Kirk has been nothing but an escape artist, when the truth is, he may have escaped, but many of those around him did not. And now, another has not. To fix this, you need not excise the scene, you need only change the dialogue to reflect Kirk's actual past. He could mention Edith Keeler, his brother Sam, Miramani, and or Gary Mitchell, tying Spock in with a lineage stretching back to his earliest days as a Starfleet captain. The guilt Kirk must feel that he has survived. That's the approach to take, not that he's some Houdini who finally faced the one death trap he couldn't break out of. A lovely scene remains, and you don't ignore. Instead, you recapitulate and accentuate 20 years of the character's history. The trouble with doing these videos is that seemingly every movie ever made has some pretty significant holes in it. The same holes we decry in modern movies are not absent from our beloved older films. We just overlooked them out of ignorance, out of trust, out of love. We were younger then, like Bill Shatner. Bad example. Until next time, as we say here in China, adios.